Hello, Annelie here from Deep Roots. This video is about elementals. Okay. What are elementals? How do they work? How do they cause us pain? How do they help us? And how can we work with them? So, what are elementals? Elementals are small life forms that we could call them building blocks. So if we have like a thought form, it could be a negative thought form, it could be a positive thought form. Elementals are life forms with very little awareness. So they don't have a consciousness of good or bad or dark or light or whatever. They just do as we say. They're building blocks, so we build with them. All our thought forms about ourselves, I'm ugly, I'm pretty, I'm funny, life is funny, I'm afraid of horses, whatever we have in our lives is built, it's full of these elementals. And these elementals are building blocks. So the more we think something, the more we focus on something, the more this elemental will grow. So we may have elementals from previous lives that are still hanging around in our aura, and they can be working well for us, or they can be working for us in a negative way. And elementals are very active, for example, in drug addiction, in smoking, in addiction to cake, addiction to criticizing ourselves, criticizing others, not getting any further with our career, not living up to our full potential, whatever it is, the fear that's behind that, whatever, there's always an elemental connected to that. So, for example, if I'm a smoker, every time I take a cigarette, I feed this elemental. When I'm not smoking and I haven't been smoking for a while, this elemental will start objecting. It will start saying, I want a cigarette. I want a cigarette. I want a cigarette. And this elemental will probably be our primary motivation to get that next cigarette. We all know if we've been on a diet or whatever it is, the first days are going fine, and suddenly we forget everything, why we were on the diet. We just want that cake in front of us, or that carrot, or whatever it is. And all our elementals that are used to a certain way of living, they will want to have that food that they're used to getting. So it's not bad, it's not good, it just is. Elementals are supporting the way of life that we want. So if the way of life we want is smoking, there is an elemental there in our aura supporting that way of life. When we want to stop smoking, that becomes much more difficult because we've maybe been smoking for 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, and this elemental has gotten bigger and bigger. So that is what makes it extra difficult for us to change. We all know it, we're human, we don't always find it fun to change. It can be difficult to change our lifestyles when we're not really done with that old way of living, like really done. It can be very difficult to change that lifestyle because we have elementals that want to be fed. And that's talking about, what are they? They're like these building blocks. So these building blocks can be used for so-called negative purposes, for self-defeating purposes, or for positive things. So we can also use elementals consciously to build up a project, to build up positive thought forms. Instead, it takes time to build up an elemental that's strong enough to work for us. It takes time, but if we want to, we can, by working on it each day, we can actually build up an elemental that is working for us, instead of the elemental that is pulling us down or keeping us in a negative cycle. I'm just going to take some water here. All right, so how do they cause pain? They cause pain by emphasizing our need for something in the world. And that is part of the illusion that's going on this planet, is that it's actually keeping us in a sort of ignorance when we are attached to things being in a certain way. We will at some stage experience pain if we're attached to things here, because attachment to things is always short term. It will end at some point. So the practice would be to go even deeper, to surrender, to surrender into the eternity, that your soul, your eternal soul. As long as we're like getting attached on the personality level, it will cause pain at some stage. And these elementals that are working for us in the personality, on the personality level, on the physical level, they will cause us to become attached. They will make it much easier for us to become very attached to something like cigarettes or cake or attention. And there's nothing wrong with getting attention, but becoming attached to attention is different. Becoming attached to the certain way we look, a certain way we want people to react to us. So we can use, for example, meditation, like observational meditation, like Buddha, where we observe, we put ourselves in a place of observing instead of being in reaction. When we're in where we're in reaction, which most of us are most of the time, we are attached to the personality plane. When we practice observation, we become more and more aware of our soul level. And on that level, we are no longer attached to what is going on the personality level. This is a long practice that takes many years, many lifetimes, but as we practice it, it starts expanding out into our daily life. So we may be sitting in meditation for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour a day, just observing. And this ability to sit in the soul perspective, observing, allows your soul to come into your cells and allows for you to actually become aware of your true self, your soul self. And this awareness will broaden out and expand out into your daily life also. This will help you become less attached to whatever you have been building up on the personality level. That is one way of shrinking the effects that come from the elementals that you've been building up on things that don't serve you. Another way can be simply not feeding the elemental, abstaining from the activity that feeds the elemental. That can be pretty hard. We need to be ready when we do that. Smoking, as an example, we need to be ready to stop smoking. We need to really want it. So until that day comes, we can practice observing to get more soul perspective into our awareness, and thus make it much easier for us to become unattached to the personality level. I hope this gives you some kind of meaning and deeper understanding. So the elementals are just here to help us live the life that we want. And talking about that, we can talk about how can I use the elementals for helping me. So an example could be, oh, I feel ugly. So maybe I have an old thought about being ugly, not being good enough, not being strong enough, whatever it is, not being enough. So I have an elemental that wants to be fed by those thoughts because it lives off those thoughts. And again, it's not because it's evil, it's because we trained it that way. So we have a habit of entertaining that kind of thought. Let's just say I'm ugly. I've been entertaining that thought for so many years, since I've been a kid maybe. And so this elemental has become strong. It will demand food regularly. I can practice not giving it this food. That's very difficult, but it can be done. I can actually refuse. I can become very present with this form of meditation, of observing, bringing that observing out into my daily life. I can become very aware that I actually am feeding this elemental much more than I knew. So maybe I know that I do it sometimes when it becomes really crazy. But actually I start noticing, I actually do it here and there in that situation. And actually I do it every time I'm becoming more successful or my life is really turning out really well. That elemental, which is used to getting that thought, will at some stage start objecting towards things getting too good. Because look here, remember we have this thought that we're believing, I'm ugly, I don't deserve to be here. And that elemental will start saying, okay, I'm hungry, let's go, we want to think that thought again. And naturally, through all those years, I have been feeding, just reacting. I have been feeding that thought to the elemental automatically, not even thinking about it. So the first step is actually becoming aware of myself feeding that elemental. That's the first step, because many times I'm doing it and not knowing that I'm doing it. So that's already a success when I start noticing, wow, I'm actually doing this. It's actually a form of self-sabotage. I'm actually using this as a technique to not get further from my comfort zone. So I'm used to this much success, love, happiness. And I think many of us know that thought when we've been really, really happy. Things have been so amazing for a while now. And then we start thinking, I'm getting a bit nervous now because things have been like super nice for a long time now. That must have an end sometime. And you start looking around for signs that it's going to end. Well, that is when your ego, your defense mechanisms start saying, hey, the amount of energy that I'm used to being able to contain, we're getting full now. we need to deflate this balloon or this vessel by our normal defense mechanisms. And that may be for someone, I'm ugly, I don't deserve to be here, whatever your thought is. And before very long, something will happen. It may be something that's happening outside yourself. You didn't have anything to do with it, as it seemed. And it activates that old thought, I'm ugly, I don't deserve to be here. It's back to basics. And at the same time, as it's a bit frustrating and depressing, if you're very, sorry, I'm just so thirsty right now. I've been on a detox. So my mouth is just wanting water. Okay, so where was I? Okay, so we have been used to this certain amount of success, love, whatever it is. And when it deflates, we actually, a part of us, if we become very present, is relieved. Because it's like a balloon, we were reaching our limits and we were actually afraid we're going to burst. Can I contain more? It's actually getting uncomfortable containing this much. This we would have noticed if we were very aware, we've practiced a long time observing. And we would also notice as it deflates that we are relieved and we just can start building up again. Our whole life has been this process. Been deflated, building up, becoming full, deflated. This way is our safe circle, our safe process just going on. So how do we get beyond this safe comfort zone of being able to withhold, contain this much energy? How do we get beyond that? So a technique I use and I teach with all my students and with all my clients when I had Akashic Record clients is we use 21-day challenges. And this is not the only way, this is just the way that I use, and it's worked so well for myself and my clients. So I keep on using it. The 21-day challenge, 21 days because 21 days to change a habit. So we use the 21-day challenge by doing something new, like for example, something that challenges this elemental. So if my elemental is addicted to the thought, I'm ugly, I don't deserve to be here. For 21 days, I challenge that. I maybe do something that challenges the limits that I'm willing to go to with being visible in the world. Because maybe if I have the thought, I'm ugly, I don't deserve to be here, I would try to hide, I would be afraid of being too visible, I would be afraid of being criticized and so on. So, okay, I actually want to challenge that because I want to become more visible. I have to become more visible if I want to share my message with the world, if I want to share my love with the world. I'm actually limiting myself by hiding, by not being afraid of critique and so on. So I want to challenge that. Okay, so what am I going to do for 21 days? Well, one time I did 21 days of live streams on Facebook where I just did psychic sessions with whoever wanted to join. And I was so scared. I had seen people do live streams. I thought it looked like the most scary thing I've ever seen. But at the same time, I was so jealous. I wished so bad that I wasn't really aware that I wished that I would be able to do it because it just looked so scary. But I could actually notice that I was jealous. And that also said something to me about that. If I'm jealous, that means that it's actually something that I myself would like to do. So the first 3 days, I was so scared. I mean, my body was reacting, I was shaking, I was so nervous. And people did criticize me, and I actually noticed, oh, it's actually not that as bad as I thought. And I'm not afraid. I may be afraid, but I want this so much, I'm going to do it anyway. And for a while I was really scared, and then I stopped being scared, and I actually found out this is part of what I want to do. I want to teach. I want to reach out to a lot of people, and I want to do it online, and I love to do it live. I found out this is me. But I hadn't been able to experience it before that because I was in a different comfort zone. So what I did is, and what we do in the 21-day challenges, is that we go from this container of energy and we step outside the container every day for 21 days. Outside this container, this is where I've been living until now. This is where I'm safe. It may be uncomfortable, painful, I get angry, I get frustrated, but it's home. It's comfortable. I know it. That is the comfort zone. That is what we all deal with. Everybody's in their own comfort zone. Doing the same things, even though we think sometimes we're doing new stuff, it's kind of the same. And maybe we do new stuff 1 time, 2 times, but that's not going to bring us outside of the comfort zone permanently. So to actually expand our comfort zone, we need to do this. We need to step outside the comfort zone 1 time, 2 times, again and again and again, continuously. And every time we step out, the reason why I was so scared is because I'm stepping out into energy that is unknown to me. So everything around me is vibrating differently than my body, than me. And that is, per definition, really uncomfortable. I want to be in here where everything around me vibrates just like me. Then I feel safe, even though it's bad, painful, whatever. When I step out here, I actually really don't have that much feel with things because it's unknown. It just feels really uncomfortable. And if it doesn't feel uncomfortable the first week, it may start feeling uncomfortable 10 days in, 2 weeks in. It's different from everybody when we start to get these reactions from the ego telling us, get back in, this is dangerous, this is unknown territory, I don't know if you're going to survive, you have to stay in here, I've kept you in here your whole life, this is where I know you're going to survive. Out here, I'm not sure I can help you. And this is when we start getting all kinds of thoughts like, what am I doing here? Why am I trying to stop smoking? It's actually nice. It's not so bad. And this cake, one piece of cake once in a while, what's the problem? Or some days we feel overwhelmingly tired, or we just feel overwhelmed by this feeling of I just don't want to do it. Or we're too busy, we forget it. Somebody else does something, so it seems like it wasn't our fault, but we couldn't do it. These are all typical ego, defense mechanisms. So typical, and you have to expect that these ones will come up. You can get more and more aware of which are my typical defense mechanisms. Mine, for example, is it used to be getting overwhelmingly tired, but now it's more like forgetting. So I have to, if I know that's my defense mechanism, I forget. And the thing is, when we forget one day in our 21 challenge, we start over. So I have to find ways to remind myself, like on my phone, reminders, post-its, whatever. So when stepping out of our comfort zone every day for 21 days, we actually get used to the vibration. It gets more well known. And at the end of the 21 days, we've actually gone out there so many times that our own vibration, our physical vibration has actually expanded out, and we've started vibrating like the energy out here. So we actually expanded our comfort zone. So now instead of shrinking our abilities in our life into this container, our container looks like this. And for every 21 challenge, we can expand this container. And the people that I know who really love these challenges, it's become more like a lifestyle, because when we see the results of just 3 weeks of doing these things, it may be very uncomfortable and we doubt ourselves many times along the way, but 3 weeks for transforming our life, it's not much. So when people see these results and experience them, like really tangible results, they will want to do it again and again with different things. So that's one way that's another way. So one way was the observing, and the other way is action. So when we really want to change something in our human experience, the physical, we need to take action. We can't only meditate. We also need to take action. So in that way, we can make room for new, more positive elementals in our life. And so let's take this example that I'm ugly, I don't deserve to be here. So let's train a new elemental that's actually balancing this out. So we can do this by creating a new thought form. And this elemental that the building, it's in the building blocks, will support this new thought form if we support it ourselves. So we need to be very resilient with this new thought form. We need to practice it every day. So this is one way we can build something. And you can do this with anything. You can, if you want to build a business, if you want to become more beautiful, if you want to accept your beauty more, if you want to accept yourself on a deeper level, if you want to become a famous actor, if you want to win the Olympics, you know, sports people, they use visualization techniques, and visualization techniques will build a thought form and will feed an elemental, and you will create an elemental. So a good example is, I have a girlfriend who all her whole childhood, her mother was so fascinated by her. She always told her she was so beautiful. Oh my God, you're so beautiful. And her mother actually created an elemental for her being just so beautiful. So as being an adult, she's just totally aware of her beauty, and it kind of just, the more this elemental grows, the more beautiful she becomes. It's very inspiring to watch. And as we have a thought form that's really vibrant in our aura, everybody will react to that thought form. So if you have a very vibrant thought form, I'm very beautiful, people will respond to that. That's what they see. That's how they react. That's what they react to, and that's what they tell you. People are just telling her all the time, "You're so beautiful, I can't understand it," just like her mother. So this is, again, in the theme, in the lines of ugly beautiful, but this is a pretty, I think it's a good example of having built a positive thought form, and well, there's always the possibility of getting attached to the positive thought form. But as long as you want to stay in the realm of the personality, why not emphasize the positive attachments or the positive thought forms rather than the negative? And at the same time, we could then practice the observing technique to get more and more soulful, more and more soul-based in our awareness, so we get less and less attached. But working on these two, emphasizing the positive. So if you want to become a very successful writer, you would emphasize this thought form in your life. You can do it by positive affirmations. You can do it by actually sitting down with action, sitting down 3 hours a day, 1 hour a day, just writing, no matter what. So what would an accomplished writer do? They would sit down and write every day. They would talk to other writers, publishers. So you just start building your thought form of being an accomplished writer by thinking, feeling like, and acting like an accomplished writer. So this is not being delusional, it's just building a thought form. And to become an accomplished writer, we don't just become that like that, it's through work. So the intention of just sitting there with your writing every day, no matter what thoughts come up, self-critique, judgment, whatever, but you're still just sitting there with your intention, that will build strength, thought form, and an elemental of being an accomplished writer. So please share your ideas, and I hope this brought you something that you can use in your life, and share any ideas that you might have or any questions.